Hello, hello, hello. How you doing there?
Hi, Devon. I didn't
Oh,
mean
look
to
at you.
join. I was
Oh, look
trying
at
to
you,
think the
Karen. How
question. How
are
are
you? You
you?
you just took all these classes with me.
I just did, but I have a question.
You had a question already. We just got out of class, Karen. You can't come back and ask questions so fast. Come on now. We had a whole.
No, this is
How many hours
this
did we
is a.
have together?
Oh
Sharon,
my God,
Karen. We had 16 plus 16. We've had a whole
32.
32 hours together.
No, we didn't do 32. You weren't there for all of it.
Oh, now you're gonna hold me accountable to the day that I wasn't there. Oh, I see what it is now. But you spent the whole 24 hours with me. How about that
No, this
one?
is you always teasing me. This is a possible interview question
Okay.
that I'm looking up. If you have a distributed team, agile team, um, what are some suggestions for top critical success factors?
In terms of an offshore team,
Yeah,
well,
like
the first thing
if
I
they
would
act.
say is I'll tell you my experience when I first went to. I really started getting agile into distributed teams in 2007 when I was at Capital One. Okay, it was the
Mhm.
first time I really had. Before when I was at Allstate and State Farm, they had these onesie twosie things, but the first time I really started experiencing really different people that had a very different culture and offshore was at Capital One.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you what I did. It was people from India, okay, so it was Indians, and I went and learned about their culture. I literally dove so deep into their culture that I'm looking at their mannerisms. I look at that. You got to scoot over so I can see you in the camera. You see, I'm not in the
Yeah,
camera. You got
I'm
to
trying
scoot
to
over.
fix
You got to
myself.
get it
I'm on the
right. You see,
couch.
I'm not in the camera. You see, I'm moving from side to side,
Yeah,
Karen.
I'm trying
Do you
to
see
set it
that,
up.
Karen? Do you see how that? Do you see that? You see how I'm doing? So just get yourself right there. You can see what's going
Oh
on.
Lord, I see you.
So, but the idea is that I try to learn about the cultures that I'm dealing with, because
Hmm.
it was, at least back then. I can't say it's exactly the same right now. You'd have situations where you'd work with a female, and there was a 9.5 hour time difference, and they were coming in at our time, and I ran into situations where, the buses would stop running for them, right, at a certain time, and it was unsafe to go out at night, and so I would find ways to share the pain with them. Like, I'd come in at 2 o'clock in the morning for some teams, so then I can help them plan during a daytime, so then the women aren't in unsafe situations. So
Okay.
just really learning about that culture, learning about the religion. I read the books. I read the religious books, right? I went ahead and just dove into them. I started eating the food, right, and gained a healthy respect for the cuisine. Okay, so realistically, I tried to almost incorporate or embed myself into who they are. Right now, I know that's extreme. I would say, yeah, that's extreme. But you can only imagine the kind of relationships that I've developed, right? I've developed some really strong relationships. And in me developing those strong relationships, when I would go travel to India, I'd have people that would invite me to their house for dinner
Okay.
because of the relationships that were built over time, right? And so I don't find it to be any different with anyone else. If you are working in, let's just say, I want to say Russia and Ukraine because that's top of the mind in the news right now. So if you're working in South America, in Brazil, right? If you're over there working in Europe, right?
Right.
You're working in Africa, in India, the Philippines, all these different places, right? I really do try to get to know the people, because, again, it helps me to understand some of the issues that they're dealing with, some of the things that they're faced with. Like a good example would be, I've had teams that would have issues like this. I have one team that I knew of. They had computers that it took 2 hours to boot up.
Oh, wow.
You understand? It took 2 hours. According to them, it took 2 hours to boot up the computer. And so, what do you do about a situation like that, right? Now I'm really getting into now I need to solve their problems in a whole different way. Because now, as I get to know them, they get to know me, they're more comfortable with having conversations with me. Because now I know the wives' names, I know the kids' names, I know them as a person, and I've given them value. Do you understand? I've given them value, right? And there's such a beautiful thing with that to make sure that people feel like people and not like they're just a cog in the system, right? Because a lot of times us Americans we treat those distributed teams not so well, not so well. Okay.
Okay, so what if you somebody's asking you about possibly going into that situation? So you haven't worked with them yet. Somebody's asking this question. Well, what would you do if you had to work with a team? You would say the same thing. I'll try to get to
Yeah,
know them.
I definitely would get to know them. I definitely would make sure they get comfortable with me as a scrum master too. Because the biggest thing that I need to get from them is the impediments that are slowing is the things that are slowing them down. And I need
Right.
for them to be comfortable enough to communicate with me. That's the reason why I'm getting to know them. Understanding the time zone differences and struggles and all this other stuff and being flexible around time frames is always a plus, right? Always a plus. But you also have a different problem, right? You have a language barrier sometimes,
Language.
right? You have a making sure that it's clearly understood. Um, the further you are away from each other, the more requirements you have to document, right? Because
I see.
people don't read at the same pace. I had a bunch of French people, people from France, a bunch of people from France that was in one of my classes earlier this year. I had probably like 16 of them, right? And realistically, they could hear very well. I mean, they could hear me very well, but I had to make sure that I put them in a team together because they had to speak to French to each other. So and then when they're in a group, they can work as a group because they weren't able to work with the group with the just purely English speaking groups because they could hear English very well but couldn't speak it very well. So it's things like that that you got to start considering because you have to remember that some of the people that maybe are offshore, and again, this is not a stereotype at all, right? They may not be as strong in the language. They may be a little bit different in terms of the communication skills, right? And so I really want to learn those things about people so that I can make sure that I can remove some of the barriers for them communicating and understanding what it is that we need to do. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Here's the deal. You got to set up daily scrums that are going to be at a great consistent time
Convenient.
that is convenient for everyone, right? Yeah, you got to think about sprint planning and days that you're going to start sprints. You remember when I told you that I like to start sprints on Wednesdays?
Right.
Well, that's helpful, right? Me starting sprints on Wednesdays is helpful because you have to remember on Monday, for folks in the Philippines, 12 hours ahead, at least in Central, they're 12 hours ahead. You got to think to yourself, dang, okay, there come when their Monday is our Sunday, and we ain't
Yeah.
working on Sunday here, right? And so literally we have to start planning on a Friday in order to make sure that they're good to go and got things to work with. And that's the reason why I start on Wednesdays. That's one of the reasons why I start on Wednesdays. So I start making adjustments to help make sure that offshore is as comfortable as everyone else. Does that make sense? And
Makes a lot.
so it is really when I start thinking about distributed teams, finding ways to help make that distributed team as comfortable and as productive and as efficient as possible. Almost like they're working like right here with me and I can see them every day, right? So that's the kind of position that I would want to be in. Now, in terms of answering that question, I think that all these things can be a part of what you incorporate into an answer for an interview for that. But I know that may be a little bit more advanced, but most people when they're asking questions like that, they're probably looking for the most basic thing about how you set up meetings,
Yeah.
how you're going to communicate with them,
Yeah.
you understanding that there could be cultural differences and time zone differences and things like that. It's probably something that you would want to answer in the interview, because I know the other things that I said is a little bit more advanced. But again, if somebody really knows Scrum and they're really a Scrum Master working at this stuff, they will respect the more advanced answer. So I'll probably start simple, then go a little bit more complex in terms of an interview question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is that all you have?
That wasn't too hard for you, unless you really want me to ask you questions.
No, you're good. You're good.
No.
Well,
good,
you know what? Here's the deal, Karen. As I said to you before, as I said to you in class, I'm here on Mondays, 8 o'clock
Yeah.
Central. This is the place for people to come ask questions. So you're welcome to come back anytime. And anytime you come back, you know I'm going to mess with you. You know I'm going to tease you, because I love and care about you, right? So, you know, that's just the way it's going to work, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Have a good one.
All righty. Bye-bye.